Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and thank you for coming out to the Innovative Housing Showcase and coming to this very exciting panel. It's a place to be in D.C. right now. Everybody's talking about it, so thank you for coming. I'm John Gibbs. I am the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Policy Development and Research at HUD. I know that's quite a mouthful, but we are the ones who officially put on the showcase, so I want to thank you all personally for coming out. It's a privilege to moderate this session, which is called Breaking Down Regulatory Barriers. We're going to be talking all about different regulatory issues that hinder the advancement of modular, manufactured, offsite, and also just housing in general. So thank you. All across the country, restrictive regulations contribute to the housing crisis. Zoning laws, permitting delays, land use rules that limit supply and drive up costs. To address the cost of building, we need to focus on reducing unnecessary barriers while, of course, maintaining safety and quality. Some of these barriers are nearly universal, from restrictions on apartments and manufactured housing to limits on other types of entry-level homes. And we know the impact is significant. Consider this number. The national home median price for this past May was more than $420,000. And regulations accounted for nearly 1/4 of that cost. This panel will explore how thoughtful reforms can cut red tape without compromising safety so that builders can deliver more homes faster and using both traditional on-site construction as well as innovative off-site and factory-built approaches. So I'm honored to introduce our great panelists. We are joined today by three leaders who are driving that change and really at the forefront of the problem we're trying to solve here. I'd like to introduce Dr. Leslie Gooch, CEO of the Manufactured Housing Institute. Dr. Gooch, in that role, advocates for the role of manufactured housing in meeting housing needs nationwide. I would next like to introduce Ryan Kolker. Ryan is the Vice President at the International Code Council, also known as ICC, and they do great work focusing on modernizing codes and standards in order to support innovation. I would next like to introduce Colt Davis. Colt is the COO of Clayton Home Building Group. Clayton is on the front lines of delivering attainable housing while navigating a complex regulatory landscape. Thank you all for joining us, both in person and in line, and thank you to the panelists for joining us. And let's go ahead and get started. So to start us off, I'd like to ask each of you to share a brief perspective. What's the single biggest regulatory challenge you see today, and where do you see the most opportunity to make meaningful progress? I'd like to start out with Ryan, if you could go ahead and address that.
Yeah, thanks so much, and really do appreciate the opportunity to be here, and thank HUD for putting on an excellent showcase. From sort of the ICC perspective, as John mentioned, we develop model building codes and standards, which really serve as the basis for building codes across the country. I think the biggest challenge as we look to scale innovative solutions is the diversity of codes that we see sort of around the country. And particularly if we're looking to invest in factory-based production, having different requirements depending on where you're going creates sort of huge challenges, leads to inefficiencies in the process. And so I think, getting to regulatory consistency really helps to sort of unlock the opportunities that we see here today and that we have before us. I think the sort of real opportunity to sort of address some of those challenges is engaging the broader industry. And so having multiple different voices at the table to say, having these regulatory consistencies is really valuable to support manufacturing, architects, engineers, homeowners, the entire sort of value chain. So I think there's real opportunities. But we really need to have sort of that collective voice as an industry, as homeowners, as building owners, to be able to sort of carry that message forward.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. How about Dr. Gooch?
Thank you so much, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you all for being here. We're so excited at our 5th annual Innovative Housing Showcase. Manufactured housing is the one federal residential building code that exists, and it's been around for just over 50 years. And that's been an excellent partnership between the industry with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and it goes to exactly what you were just saying, Ryan, about the need for regulatory efficiency. What I always say is regulatory efficiency plus factory building equals affordable housing. And what you know in that equation is that HUD code manufactured homes are the most affordable housing that exists, single family housing, 1 to 4 units, that exists in this country. And we're really able to offer people quality homeownership without compromise. They're getting brand new, beautiful homes. I hope everyone will take a look at the 4 HUD code manufactured homes that we have on display here today. But what I'll tell you in terms of regulatory barriers, it's where you have erosion to the regulatory efficiency. And we've experienced that as a part of HUD in terms of Congress in the dead of night giving the Department of Energy some authority over construction standards. That agency's got one perspective, and then we've got HUD with another perspective. MHI is really fighting to make sure that HUD's in the driver's seat, that HUD should work with other agencies, but at the end of the day, it has to be one set of standards and building codes that our manufacturers can build to. Otherwise, you erode that regulatory efficiency. And so the other thing is we've got to continue, and HUD's been really helping us. How many of you have been here in years past to see the housing showcase? Well, thank you for coming again. Every year you come, you see different models of homes that are built to that federal building code. We can do a HUD code ADU. We can do a single section. We can do a multi-section. We've brought cross-mod homes to demonstrate that. We've got our first ever single section cross-mod out on the National Mall. So as we expand the range of homes that can be built to the federal building code, we are going to be able to meet those needs of communities across this country. And so HUD's working right now to help us actually go vertical to eliminate the requirement that the homes have the chassis up. And so it's not really a barrier, it's an opportunity because we already have the partnership, but we do want to keep building that. And dealing with chassis is a big deal. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And Colt.
Yeah, first I'll start off just by thanking John and HUD, generally speaking, for the opportunity to contribute to the conversation. I'll provide a little bit of backdrop in answering the question. We're all familiar with the challenges that exist out there across the country today as it relates to affordability, whether it be rural, urban, suburban areas. Affordability is a real issue and challenge that we face out there. And so examples of that is we estimate that there's over 6 million homes that are needed in the marketplace to support demand. As you mentioned earlier, the median new home sale price at $460,000 has 75% of households simply priced out of the market. The average or the median age of a first-time home buyer today is 38 years old. And so what all those things are indicators that there's real pressure and need as it relates to affordable housing. It's a real challenge. So now specifically kind of going into the question, I view really at a more local level opportunities as it relates to zoning, land use policy as being one of the primary opportunities that we face, maybe even the entitlement process and what it means to get projects approved. But as it relates to the zoning and the land use types of opportunities, we're a builder of site-built homes, manufactured homes, modular houses, and we see that in all categories of homes that we build. And it seems the solutions that are best able to deliver affordability are the ones that are impacted as a result of these practices. And in too many cases, modern manufactured housing has been zoned out as a category in its entirety. And as Leslie was mentioning, in the manufactured housing industry, there is a broad spectrum of various product types out there to meet the needs, just as there is in the site-built industry. And it's not uncommon for a local municipality to articulate preferences as it relates to the aesthetics of a site-built home and why we face zoning which precludes an entire category of housing, one that has a very broad range of product types. Is a real opportunity, and addressing that truly frees up the industry to respond to and meet this nation's affordable housing solutions with high-quality, well-designed homes. So a real opportunity there.
Great. Thank you, Cole. So I'd like to ask each of you just a few questions, and I'd like to start with Ryan here. Ryan, we know that building codes, are essential for safety and quality, but they also need to keep pace with innovation. How is ICC working to modernize codes while supporting new construction methods like modular or 3D printing?
Yeah, thanks, John. So ICC develops model building codes, which really serve as the basis for the building codes that are adopted across the country. And we update those codes on a 3-year cycle to do just that, to capture lessons learned from previous disasters, incorporate new technologies into the code, and we really use a consensus-based process. So anyone who is interested in contributing to the code process can. And so if folks have sort of new solutions, new technologies, certainly there's avenues to be able to feed that into the code development process. For those sort of real cutting edge things that, maybe you're not, maybe you don't have sort of a dedicated market, or there aren't, a lot of manufacturers sort of in that space, we even have avenues to get those products approved. It's called the product evaluation process. And so even if there's not a code or standard requirement that's already available, we can develop the acceptance criteria of, what do you test that product to? How do you actually prove that it meets the safety requirements of the code? And so that's a real way to bring, sort of new and innovative products to the market. So we've done that early on with things like 3D printing, with panelized systems, and other sort of new technologies. Specifically in the offsite construction space, codes have traditionally been developed from the perspective of site build. And if you think about sort of offsite construction, a lot of those things that you would see as an inspector, on the job site happen, sort of back in the factory, which could be, hundreds or thousands of miles away. And so how do you set a process that assures you're getting the same outcome, but recognizing that it's done a little bit differently? So we've developed a series of standards that set out the best practices of what does that actually look like. And so we've been engaging with states to adopt those standards. And so if you have a factory in one location, but you want to be able to serve regionally, you don't have to sort of switch between different requirements for your quality assurance manual or sort of all of those pieces. And so you can get to that efficiency. So real opportunities there to continue to advance innovation, recognize the opportunities, and see what's going on within the industry, and be able to adapt the code to be able to effectively use those technologies and practices.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. And Dr. Gooch, we know that manufactured housing is one of the most effective ways to deliver quality, attainable homes. What are one or two regulatory reforms that could help scale this solution nationally, and what solutions are showing promise?
Thank you for that question. And I do want to kind of talk about some of the things that you just brought up, Ryan. The beauty of our federal building code, it's actually a performance-based code. And so it's actually looking at the outcomes. And so our industry can be innovative and come up with new technologies and new ways of doing things. But at the end of the day...
Could you explain to people what a performance-based code is?
So performance-based, and Colt, you're probably better at this than me, but from the Federal Trade Association perspective, but a performance code is where it says this house has to perform, that if these are the construction elements So for wind speed or thermal zone or just all of the different elements of construction, this house has to perform and meet this standard. But it doesn't say, we're not going to be prescriptive about here's how you actually have to build it to make it meet that standard. And that's what allows us to be innovative, to say, we have a new technology that makes more sense, it's more efficient in the factory, but we're going to do that. And then the other beauty that we have is that you've got HUD contracted inspectors in all of our factories. So you actually have the designs approved, and then you have the factory approval there, and then you've got approvals on site. So at each step of the way, you're being assured that the product is resilient, and we know we can do this to scale in a quality way for the homeowner. So what we have to do still is keep the code up to date, because what the code doesn't do, it is performance-based, but what it doesn't say, until we encourage it to say that, is that you can do 2 to 4 units. And so we actually needed to deal with the firewall performance kind of requirements within the code in order to allow for us to build those 2 to 4 units. The Manufactured Housing Consensus Committee, which is the kind of consensus committee you're talking about that advises HUD, they just met and they said, you know what, we want to go vertical. We think that we should do 2 to 4 units, but let's go up. Let's have more than one story. And so let's think about the old requirement that every floor that comes out of a factory must have a steel frame underneath it. And maybe you don't need that on the upper floor because that's wasteful and challenging and doesn't make a lot of sense. And so the consensus committee actually came up with recommendations to HUD, and HUD's actually considering that right now. That's a game changer in a lot of communities. There are some legislative changes that need to be made. We believe that we can produce more elevations to this performance-based code if the optionality was there to produce a house without the steel chassis underneath. Because then, you know, the stigma when it comes to zoning really is all about these houses kind of look a certain way. And you could do different things with the elevation, and I think our industry's done a great job with that, but we can do even more if we have that optionality. But of course, the regulators are going to have to keep up with that. And, you know, I know, Colt, you can talk more about the wonderful ideas and things we could do. But on the regulatory side, I do also want to emphasize it is absolutely necessary to overcome multiple regulators, because that takes away efficiency. And so that's where HUD has to remain in the driver's seat, overseeing our construction code just as they have for 50 years. And other agencies could have great ideas, but it has to go through the HUD process. So that's something that's really important, or we will lose that efficiency that we have found.
Great. And Colt, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think Leslie's referring to chassis removal, which is actually currently in the Road to Housing Act. And that'd be an example where you met with a lot of people here over the last couple of days, and getting a question consistently around how can government work hand in hand with organizations like ours to drive innovation in the industry, to drive innovation in housing. And this chassis removal opportunity is a perfect example where, let's say, Congress in particular can get directly involved in affecting and supporting innovation in housing. And so this chassis removal opportunity that we have is significant in terms of its impact to enable a variety of different approaches and applications for modern manufactured homes. So if you're going and you're setting a home on a traditional masonry foundation, the chassis obviously is very handy in transporting the home from the building facility to the job site. Once it gets to the job site, if it's set on a masonry foundation, that chassis is really unnecessary, and that's anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 worth of cost that the homeowner is bearing as a result of that requirement. As I mentioned, the ability to go vertical is a really, really important attribute of any housing solution out there. Land cost is a serious contributor to a lot of the escalation that we're seeing in home prices. So by removing that chassis, we can crane a second-story box on top of that first story and very efficiently deliver two-story product, which lends itself better to more high-density types of scenarios, which is really important from an affordability standpoint.
Thanks, Colt. And could you tell us about the Clayton home that's on display here in the National Mall?
Yeah, so we're very excited. I'll talk first about CrossMod Homes, and that is a specific product type that sits within the manufactured housing industry. It's built to a specific set of standards and specifications. The most intuitive way to think about those standards and specifications is to what you would see or experience if you're walking a $250,000 to $350,000 site-built home. Not a lot of those being built, but if you walk that product, that is an intuitive example of what you would expect to see in terms of the standards and specifications for the CrossMod product type. That product type is also supported by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac with traditional site-built lending. So that total package is a very powerful mechanism for driving affordability. Now, this house here in particular is the nation's first single-section CrossMod home, which is a pretty significant enhancement to that program. I want to thank and express gratitude to FHFA as well as Fannie, Freddie, for their support and leadership in enabling this new single-section CrossMod product type that you'll see out there. I think that's a testament to those entities, those organizations, their commitment to driving affordability. It's a great example of a partnership in driving affordability. So please do get out there and walk the home. It is a beautiful home. It's 990 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and garage, front porch, etc. It's built to our E-Built standard, which is an energy efficiency standard. It's packed full of insulation and great windows. And in the Baltimore, Maryland area, we did the calcs. That home's monthly utility cost would be around $100, which is just another element of driving affordability. So please do get out there, take a look at the home. And as you're looking at it, keep in mind that opportunity we have to go vertical with that product type. If you walk into the home, there's a flex space with a drafting table and some renderings of what that home would look like in a 2-story type of application. So,
Great. Thanks, Colt. I'd like to open up this question to all of you. How can policymakers and industry collaborate more effectively to align on the standards and performance outcomes so that innovation can scale more quickly?
Well, I would say that the partnership with HUD is the example, and what we need to do is expand the range of houses that can be built to that federal building code. A lot of what we're talking about, HUD has direct leadership over because of this 50-year partnership with HUD. And I think it's worked well. We know that having a federal building code makes it more efficient. You can transport across state lines, homes built to the standards of wherever that house is going to be sited. HUD can also take a leadership role when it comes to making sure that localities understand that these houses are built with the federal seal of approval and that they should not be treated differently than houses built to other codes. That has been a real challenge for us over time. And when you drive around and you look at what an entry-level home buyer is able to purchase as a home ownership opportunity for them today, and you look at the age of that home, and then you consider what code it was built to. Oftentimes it wasn't built to a code because it's so old. And then you compare it to the beautiful homes that we're building today to a federal building code, and the price point comparison, what you see is that we can bring the American dream back for people in the houses that are quality, that they would want to live in today. That means that HUD also has a role in making sure that our financing programs that the federal government supports those homes that are built to its code, the HUD code. And so we're excited about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac leaning in on the single section cross mod. We would encourage that HUD, because that helps us with zoning, right? When the financing is endorsed, then the local zoning official can't say, well, oh, there must be something wrong with this because we've got a loan level price adjustment or we've got this. So we would like to see more HUD code homes brought under the umbrella of the programs Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and FHA are supporting as well. So HUD has a real leadership role in all of these areas, but you have the map. The one thing that I will tell you that was so important is that HUD lean into HUD code manufactured homes to make sure that that code stays up to date. That is it's been the last decade. That's happening on a more regular cadence. And that is just so very important so that our industry can continue to innovate and look at all the different designs that people are needing today and make sure that we can produce those houses for them.
Yeah, I think there's a couple opportunities. One I already mentioned around the industry coming together to update codes, but also to work with local communities to assure that those codes are updated at the state and local level. I think the other piece is actually opportunities like this, where the building industry can come together, have sort of various different examples of sort of what's possible, but then also advocating to assure that what's possible is what's actually happening. And so being able to, again, sort of work through the code development process to make sure that all of these things that we see here today are actually possible and can come to fruition. But it's also about, I think, engaging consumers more directly. There was a survey done of just, average public citizen on, what do they think their sort of local code looks like? And most of them said, my local government has it covered, we're fine, nothing to see here. But in actuality, I think about 2/3 of the country are covered by a code that is, more than 2 cycles behind, which means, 6 years or more. And if you think about someone interested in buying a new home, and compare that to buying a new iPhone, for instance, they're not going to want to buy a new iPhone that is built to 2018 standards, yet they'll buy a house that's built to 2009 or 2006 standards. And that just doesn't make sense to me.
Thanks, Ryan. Moving on to the next question, and this is for Colt. As a builder, how do you navigate the patchwork of state and local regulations? Where do you see opportunities to make the process more predictable and efficient for home builders? And what kind of regulatory modernization could help meet demand?
Yeah, I think the issues excuse me, by the way, these DC allergies are throwing me off a bit, but I think the issues at a state or local level really go back to, say, zoning, and I'll say maybe more prominently on the entitlement process and what it means to get projects approved. And so I think opportunities as it relates to that is for local government to really invest in, let's say, process, procedure types of improvements to continue to improve in the ability to support just housing development in general. And so, as a site builder, as an example, we'll operate in a major metropolitan area. And we'll deal with 10, 15, 20 different municipalities that have different preferences and nuances that we have to navigate. That's very challenging. That variation in and lack of consistency means that it just generally creates inefficiency. So In some cases, we even see variation in the application of code or the interpretation of code. So there's a real opportunity for local government in general to invest in improvement of its practices, its process and procedures to better support housing development. And I think here it really helps highlight just the value and the potential that exists in the HUD code. And Leslie was speaking to this earlier. The HUD code being a federal building standard, one that one of the greatest benefits is the way in which it preempts the local building code in both construction and safety standards. That creates a level playing field, a consistent scenario that we can go out and execute on. So Leslie's touched on the mechanisms that are in place to help support that code continuing to respond to advancements in housing and knowledge build, just in general building sciences. So the mechanisms are there to continue to update and progress the code in the right way. You have third-party inspectors inside of these home building facilities all across the country that are overseeing and monitoring the standards, the application of the standards. And you have tremendous capability in this industry and in this segment to truly deliver on and respond to the affordable housing issues that we're seeing. And so that in particular goes back to the zoning opportunities as it relates to manufactured housing, and in its entirety there's an opportunity there. So
Great, thanks, Cole. And kind of following up on that question, but also more broadly, and this is for everyone, what examples have you seen where public and private partnerships help to cut through regulatory red tape and deliver more housing?
I can certainly start with a really great example out of Minneapolis. The Minneapolis Housing Authority identified sort of lots throughout the city where there were opportunities for infill. And rather than sort of trying to do sort of one-offs in each of those different neighborhoods, they actually identified a modular solution that could be replicable for all of those different lots. And all you would really need to do is sort of change the facade to match with sort of the neighborhood character. And so being able to then have sort of that pre-approved, preset design, with modular manufacturers that were able to deliver that, that meant, a much smoother process on moving forward. Through the Housing Authority, also being able to line up financing for those projects, but then also thinking about sort of the impact on the neighborhood as well. And being able to deliver those houses quickly without what you would see on a typical job site of sort of months of folks sort of trekking onto the site, not disturbing that existing neighborhood, but being able to sort of activate quickly, address affordable housing issues within that community, and really get the scale that they needed through a modular solution.
Well, I just want to say, when you talk about an excellent public-private partnership, it's the HUD code. And if you look at a lot of the affordable housing policies that HUD has undertaken over time, a lot of that really looks past the private sector and focuses on nonprofit entities or other entities. And what I think we really need to celebrate here is what happens when we have this partnership between HUD and our industry to come together to produce homes at price points that are within reach of today's incomes. So without that government subsidy that has become such a traditional element of any conversation around affordability. We want to be the game changer. Right now we're at 10% of all new single-family home starts. We think we can be a lot more than that. And really, it's this partnership. There's examples across the country of where HUD code manufactured homes, whether you're talking about the cross-mod home or if you're talking about a land lease community. We've got UMH Properties here with 3 homes on display that will go into these beautiful land lease communities that offer the home ownership option to someone who might not have the income to own the land and the house, or they might just really want that community feel. And so through the private sector working with HUD, what we've seen is that's been an excellent way to get this housing out across the country in different applications without continually having to go back to Congress and ask for more and more and more subsidy. So,
Yeah, I think the recent example of single section crosswise is a really good one. In this case, you have Freddie, Fannie, FHA, FHFA, regulatory, you have Congress, you have legislative support and encouragement of the program, advocacy, all of those various participants coming together to create something that's going to have an incredible impact on the industry. I failed to mention earlier that this single section cross mod out here is a home that hits the market at up to $250,000. So there's a lot of need for $250,000 homes across the country. So these, again, that cross mod represents one product type within a manufactured housing industry. It has an ability to deliver many, many different product types, but one that is definitely on par with other site-built homes at that same price point. So I think that's a good example.
Great. Thanks, Colt. And that wraps up our panel here. I want to thank you, Leslie, Ryan, and Colt, for sharing your insights. And thank you to everyone, both here and online, for joining us in this important conversation. Today's discussion underscored a critical point. Regulations must evolve with the times. When codes and permitting processes align with innovation, we can deliver more homes more quickly and at a price that families can afford. HUD is committed to working alongside our industry partners, local governments, and communities to help make that happen. Together, we can reduce barriers, unlock innovation, and bring the American dream of safe, affordable housing within reach of more families. Please enjoy the rest of the showcase and take the time to see all the demonstrations of innovative housing solutions in action. Thank you.